My name is Xenia, and you are listening to Garden of the Imaginal, my multimedia Substack. Today, I will be sharing with you your monthly transmission for the month of March. And this is going to be open to everyone until March 6th. After that, it will go into a vault where it is available to all paid subscribers to be revisited again and again. The music you are listening to was created by Kristen Sontag of Sunday Diamond. To be honest, this March transmission, when I synthesized all of the symbols together, it felt like a very big turning of the page. In a way, the true start of the year. There was a very clear focus and directive, this challenge or invitation to own our spiritual and metaphysical power and to work with it actively during challenging times, during dark times, to overcome and transmute illusion, hatred, separation, and fear. And by, you know, seeing how much we are able to walk our talk when it comes to believing in consciousness being the primary thing of reality. This is the month where we are invited to lean into that truth and to create with that truth rather than habitually reacting with confrontation and polarity. And so if you are new to this space, every month I channel messages using a synthesis of divinatory tools. This month I worked with the Book of Stones by Robert Simmons and Naisha Sian. I worked with that pretty much every month. I'll link that for sure in the show notes. I also worked with two different decks. One of them is the Kantaji Oracle, an ecological spiritual guide and creative prompt deck by Ray Diamond, and the artist is Laura Zuspin. And then I worked with a second deck called the Goddess of Love Tarot. And this is a deck written by Gabriella Herstick and illustrated by Julia Popescu, also known as Snakes for Hair. So those are the three tools that we synthesized. And before we get super into it, I just want to share with you again that if you become a supporting paid subscriber to the Substack, you will receive every month a workbook, and that will have the written transmission about the stone of the month. It will have the channeled messages from the tarot written out for you. It will have journal prompts as well as new and full moon tarot spreads. Also, I wanted to share with you something really new that I haven't shared anywhere else yet, which is this collaborative multimedia art project that I did with a collective called the Resonance Collective. The name of the project is The Shape of Now, and it is a creative response to the changing paradigm that we're living in. It's all about wayfinding and using our creativity to let the path emerge before us in an uncertain time. So I will drop a link for you to check that out. That is hosted by MetaLabel. If you haven't checked out that platform, I highly recommend it. It's very exciting collaborative space for people to offer their work. And this month's workshop, the only workshop that's going to be open through Myths of Creation, is a guest facilitated workshop called Crafting Your Prayer Practice. It's going to be with Heidi Smith, who wrote a whole book about approaching prayer as something empowering, that is non-dogmatic, that is open to people from all cultures and all different kinds of belief systems. And Heidi does such beautiful work in that space. So I'm very excited to host Heidi on March 11th. We will leave all of the information for that in the show notes as well. And the last thing I want to share with you is that I will be in Bali for this really gorgeous retreat at this beautiful hotel called Hotel Sages in collaboration with Dive and Well. And I'm co-hosting a retreat there. We have one or two more spots. This is a very intimate retreat. There will only be 14 guests total. That's the maximum. And it will be March 21st to 28th. So I will leave the information if that calls to you also below. Now, without further ado, let's go deeper into our transmission. Yeah, I'm a little nervous to share this month's messages because it's very confronting to the part of me that is attached to having to grasp and know everything through the mind. Because this month, we're really being invited to release attachment to identification with our stories, especially the stories of imbalance, the stories of different dramatic things that have happened in our lives or are happening in our lives as the core of our identity. Not to minimize or escape them, but to identify with them. That is the thing that we are being asked to question, loosen, or release. And as I read this to you, it is already March 1st, so I am already well aware of the burgeoning horrors, acts of war that are happening between the US and Israel against Iran, and Iran also in retaliation. So I just want to acknowledge that in the space so that we can be honest about the place we are in, the experience we're sharing, and this experience of being human at this time. And what makes this message so challenging is this context. So I'm putting it into the space. I'm going to share it anyway because I share what I get, and it's up to you to use your sovereign judgment and discernment and energetic discernment to take what resonates and leave the rest. So yes, the divination had this very clear directive to work with our spiritual power first and foremost above everything, and to allow ourselves to trust our sensing mechanism outside the mind and to feel our energetic nuance, to have maturity, and to actually invest in the idea that our consciousness is the basis for everything that exists, to understand that manifest material reality is a reflection of deeper consciousness. If you look at physics and quantum physics, the model that is most embraced by the most respected mathematicians and physicists of our time is that manifest reality is the manifestation of quantum reality, which is the deeper code, the deeper layer, the root of what's physically manifest. So knowing this, how can we work with our healing practices, our emotional transmutation practices, our creativity, our artwork, and even the way we act in relationships to shift our consciousness around anything and everything that we feel there is a sense of corruption or distortion or uneven charge around? How can we do that? And for me, I'll just be very honest, for the last 10 years, I have been actively building my trust in the spiritual layer of life, while also trying to commit to understanding the power dynamics of the systems of oppression that we live in, so I could speak to them and find ways to empower myself and other people to make changes on both the mental, physical, and spiritual level. But what's being called for this month is to prioritize the spiritual and energetic power over the mental, and step-by-step physical changes we can make to prioritize the metaphysical. And the stone guide for the month, Berylanite, suggests that this month we are ready to energize our hearts and crown chakras for palpable consciousness expansion. That is what this month really welcomes us to, palpable consciousness expansion. If you are listening to this and you resonate with my work, there's an invitation to use your gifts to cultivate hope and faith in the divine, and to anchor yourself in genuine, not forced, but genuine faith, so you can act from the place of your faith in the divine and share it generously with others when they really need it, because not everybody has access to faith in the way that some of my creative community does. Berylanite also asks us to tap into our relationship with spirit in a consistent way as much as possible, to let in small joys, to let in small delights, so we don't develop this dark cloud of density above us that is going to pull us into a hyper focus on polarity. This is really a time where our energy and attention is something we want to own and steward and choose. And when we decide to look at the darker things of the world, we want to do it with energetic sovereignty, awareness, and emotional presence. The stone really asks us to trust and lean into our faith in the support that is available from the higher dimensions, and also asks us to open our clear seeing, our ability to see and understand how we may be holding ourselves back from stepping into our spiritual power. this is this type of spiritual power we're stepping into, not to dominate anyone, not because we want to have a psychedelic experience, but really from a place of love and service. And the stone is very specifically reminding us to invite the darkness, the shadow, and the light, that they belong to each other, to remind them that they belong to each other, to love the shadow back into integration. And so the invitation is a devotional presence with all of our shadows, collective and personal, to allow them to bring them into our hearts where they can be transmuted, transformed, and recreated. And if that jives with your metaphysical perspective, then great. If it doesn't, it might be something you don't want to force, but just kind of keep an open mind around and consider. Maybe you want to experiment with what it feels like to harness your energy before taking action or making decisions. So I want to mention that I am wrapping up an offering that I began in late January called Time Study. And we hosted a guest teacher last week named Georgia Jean, who channels a collective called the Circle of Light. And Georgia and the Circle talked to us about the importance of shifting our consciousness towards a reality where what we want already exists and where what we don't want is not there. And this reminds me a lot of Realization by P's work, where you focus on the timeline where you are manifesting what you already want instead of fighting with your current timeline or using avoidance to have your central focus. You're focusing on desire. Your orientation is towards what you want. Your consciousness is towards what you want. That invitation also coincided with another invitation from the talk, which was to move into our heart space and to love and accept all shadowy energies, all charged energies that we're seeing as a first step, and then taking action, so that our action is rooted in the consciousness of the new paradigm, of the new storyline, of the new timeline. So it's not about not taking action. It's about harnessing your energy and owning your energy before you take action, so you're responding, not reacting. We also hosted another facilitator named Keoni Hanalei, who is a practitioner of Hawaiian Mu culture. And Keoni shared that in his perspective, humanity's current legacy is war, and that war, this obsession with war, comes from a sort of collective mania that is partially rooted in the fact that we are not in a culture where each of us is being sincere and authentic to ourselves, but in one where it is really normal to try to live up to the expectations and projections of other people. And so I shared that with you because, you know, those teachings were very powerful. And so they're very much in my sphere of influence in this moment. But the symbols I pulled really echoed the sentiment that our authentic fire is important. Our authentic understanding of the metaphysical power that we have is something that we've maybe toyed around with, we maybe danced around with, maybe we've used it for business or, you know, for little things. But what happens when we adopt this as primary? What happens when we go all in with this? That is March's invitation for those of us who have built up a strong faith in the unseen or spiritual world as real. Okay, so yeah, there's this just a big call to trust our spirits and to do what we believe to be true and authentic to us, to perform less and instead invest in our relationship to our divine power more. That is the invitation. And the tarot themes that I will read to you really do echo this. So I'm going to just share with you all of the channeled messages we received from a few tarot cards that I pulled. So the two tarot themes of the month came from this card, the self-seeing eye from the Kantaji Oracle, the self-seeing eye, and the sovereign. The sovereign. Here's the message. This month, you will be purified by your will, your courage, and the memory of who you are. You are claiming your sight, your vision, and perspective. You are learning how to let all that is not truly you or yours burn and fall away. This intensity may exhilarate at times, but it also brings grief in its wake. You are remembering how each of you is a sovereign leader in your own right. You are remembering that your authority is innate and inborn. You shed to clearly see, and clearly see what must be shed. The fervor and passion burns bright, but along with this, you are being invited to understand your boundaries, your pace, and the structures that allow your fire to burn bright without burning you out. So yeah, sovereignty comes up again and again. Here are some phrases from the books that came with these decks that were particularly helpful as anchors about the self-seeing eye. Take a closer look at yourself to move beyond limiting assumptions about who and what you are. So a big month to question the limitations that you have either adopted or are overlaying onto yourself and your reality. The Sovereign, which is also traditionally in the deck, the Emperor, associated with Vesta, which stands for devotion, book from Gabby Herstick's book. It says, an invitation to step fully into your heart's power, not as an act of control or dominance over another, but in sovereignty and commitment to self. She who internalizes her power and devotes it to something higher. So again and again, we are receiving this theme of spiritual sovereignty, of understanding what it looks like to own our power outside the power paradigm of power over, which includes not trying to tell other people what to think or who to be. And I know how hard that can be, especially when we love people and want to help them. But part of owning our sovereignty is allowing other people their sovereignty. So that is our first part of the spread. What are we calling in? We are calling in card 14 from the Kantaji Oracle. The chasm shrinks as you step across. The chasm shrinks as you step across. And from Goddess of Love Tarot, we have pulled the Enchantress, which is traditionally the Magician. And it is the year of the Magician. It is magic that catapults you forward. You learn by moving, by risking, by being so present in the now that the thought of the future cannot consume you or confuse you. You are so present in these moments that you no longer get enchanted by the imagined big picture. Your power is most potent when you can concentrate it in the moment you are in. You are learning how to work with pure instinct. You are learning how capable you are when you trust one step at a time. Things that felt impossible are suddenly clear when you stop thinking and start moving, dancing with the choices of life. So from the Kantaji Oracle, the message around the chasm shrinks as you step across is this: a paradigm shift you have been longing for, but that seemed out of reach, is now at hand. The time is ripe to move on to the next phase and leave the old phase behind. Take heart and have courage. What was formerly impossible is now imminent. And then with the Enchantress from the Goddess of Love guidebook, the Magician exemplifies living aligned with the universe and following your purpose, your dharma, your true will. As the Enchantress, this card does not walk the path of asceticism, but embodies the idea that desires are sacred and a means of evolution and spiritual growth. So it's really building this story of sovereignty and stepping into the impossible, changing reality, not just through thinking, but through action. What are we cleaning out? This is interesting. We had 52, you are multitudes from the Kantaji Oracle, and the 3 of Pentacles, which is really beautiful in this deck, the 3 of Pentacles as our clearing out. Our message is you can't be everyone all the time. The fantasy of trying to be all-encompassing, all-pleasing, and ephemeral must yield so you can embrace the power of being a singular human being with a perspective that is different in every now moment. You are shifting the teams you have built, alliances you have created, and structures that felt important. You are making new altars and taking apart those you have outgrown. As you shed your fantasies and worship life itself instead, what is it and who is it you are most devoted to? What altar must be rebuilt? What identity must be chosen with commitment and conviction? And which ones are you prepared to shed? From the guidebooks, what we are shedding from a multitude is we are taking a break from asking questions about if anything even exists, kind of getting lost in the existential sauce and the multiplicity. We're taking a break from that. And the Three of Pentacles card tells us it's time to build inward stability before weaving with others. It's time to build inward stability before weaving with others. Okay, the next card is a tool or practice to support you. A tool or practice to support you. And here we had a fork in the river from the Cantu Oracle, and the Ten of Swords we had, but in reverse. The Ten of Swords in reverse. This month is a month of choice. Every belief that you have been attached to that has made pain part of your identity is being activated in order for you to choose something else. Where are you addicted to the familiar pain? Where are you addicted to the smallest version of you? To taking less or asking for something that doesn't align with your truth? Let yourself feel the daggers of belief that do not serve. Let them show you what you are ready to shed, to shift, to sing. You are a bright light on a dark road. Let the swords fall from your back. Do not let the past make your decisions in the now. Do not let the past make your decisions in the now. This actually reminds me of a note I took from something Keoni Hanalei said yesterday. He said, trauma is you asking the past for permission to be present right now. And that's not to downplay the very real traumatic experiences people have had, especially when they were in super vulnerable positions, especially as children. But it is a confronting month where we're asking ourselves what stories we have already completed and how the stories that we know well, as true as they are serving our ability to make choices or be present in these moments we're in. I am a big believer that there has to be a lot of validation before transformation or transmutation. Ourselves want to be seen and heard as real before they're ready to change something or transform into something else. So you might be a part of the process where validation is important, but that's why this month is such a big shift for me, as I feel the energy is it's saying like a lot of the people listening to this are done with a lot of those experiences being their guideposts and are moving into something that's completely radically new that comes from spiritual presence. So here are some messages from the book for A Fork in the River from the Cantu Oracle, a defining and fleeting moment of choice. Trust your ability to handle whatever outcome you choose, rather than letting the surface appearance of the past before you sway your decision. Tune into how your body responds to each possibility. And then from the Ten of Swords from Gabby Herstick, a chance to release yourself from the shackles of what is bringing you more pain than joy. A moment of reprieve or an end to the agony. Being in the eye of the storm and having the clarity and wisdom to know how to move forward. And lastly, we have the message from the guides. And for that, we have 3 cards from the Cantu Oracle. We have, they do not miss their seed pods. They do not miss their seed pods. And then we have the 7 of Pentacles. Really beautiful rendition of that here. And the Tower, which was reversed. The Tower reversed. Here's the message. Beloved humans who love for things to stay the same. Death and life are one. Change and life are one. As you learn to understand this, you develop a kind of patience, one that can trust everything that is crumbling is only being reformed into what your spirit needs, what the world deserves. Do not hold too tight onto your wishes. Do not hold too tight onto your expectations. Do not hold too tight onto your ideas. Do not hold too tight to your plan of how everything ought to grow. Let things grow. Let go of the control you were taught would save you and lean into the practices that remind you that you are everything and everything is you. This will fortify you to make decisions. The patience you are wanting to build lives in your senses, in the moments of joy where you allow the earthly scents and textures fully into you. This teaches you something about letting go and how closely letting go is connected to letting in. Let things in. Do not brace against the change or pleasure that is inevitable should you choose to be fully alive in your life. From the Kantachi Oracle, where it says, they do not miss their seed pods, the message is, let go of what you have created. Let it have its own life. Trust it will find its way in the world. And then for Seven of Pentacles, the message was, the hard work you've put into building a life aligned with the goddess has taken on a life of its own. So very similar messages. The Seven of Pentacles is a pause, a long sigh, followed by admiration for the work you've done. The shift in focus allows you to see how far you've come and to use this to inspire you to keep going. The sacred marriage in the material realm and the concept of mothering something that can sustain itself. The affirmation by Gabby Herstick, I trust the process, I trust the goddess, I trust in and honor what I have cultivated. And lastly, the message for the Tower reversed. The Tower becomes an auspicious omen when reversed, a reminder that the hard part is over, the power is back in your hands, and you have moved through the peril towards rebirth. So the messages here are around shifting away from mental control towards spiritual sovereignty and really feeling the energetic difference between. There's a reminder here that we're in a sort of paradigm of different rules, that what we thought was impossible is now possible. So how we step forward is going to shift because of the changing terrain. It's a month to really play around or experiment with what happens when you double down on your commitment to your faith in the spiritual power that you have, or double down on the availability of spiritual support that's available to us when you ask for it. And having the courage to understand who we are and who we could be if suffering and imbalance was not a necessary and inevitable part of our core identity as individuals and as a species. So I hope that this message has sparked some curiosity or inspiration in you for how to really own your own sovereignty, your own energetic power. Maybe I'll see you at one of Heidi's workshops or in Bali. And I hope that you enjoy the workbook that's ahead. And please take care, dear gardener. I know that your heart has so much power in it, and I hope that you continue to feel into that truth as the month unfolds. And I will see you in the middle of the month.